First of all, I'm Silvana, as you said. I represent the second generation of Galardi. I studied tourism economics, so I have the dream of enhancing of the beautiful Campania region in which Galardi is located.
Yeah.
So Galardi was born in 1991 at the slope of the Roccamonfina volcano in Campania region, South Italy. I have a little map here, so you can really see. So we are here, and that's the volcano, and we are located here at the slope. But actually, the origin of the family business, the property, dates back to the 19th century when Pasquale Galdieri, my great-great-grandfather, bought 300 hectares of oaks, and he decided to convert the oaks into chestnuts and plant some olive trees. So most of the property was inherited, and the family obviously continued to maintain the lands. So the first time the Galardi was born in 1991, the first vintage produced was the 1994 of Terra di Lavoro, which is a blend of 80% Aglianico and 20% Piedirosso. As you might know, the Aglianico is characterized by the roughness. Instead, the Piedirosso is very smooth, and this is why we added a small proportion of Piedirosso in the Terra di Lavoro blend. And since the beginning, we decided to entrust the consultation of the winemaker Riccardo Cottarella and decided to graft actually only native grapes such as Aglianico and Piedirosso that mainly grow on volcanic soil. The first time my family went to live in Italy, they went without any kind of expectation, and as you said before, and that's fantastic for us, they achieved a great public and critical success all around the world. So Terra di Lavoro means land of work, and is the name of the historical region of southern Italy where Galardi is located, and it corresponds roughly to the northern Campania, southern Lazio, and the upper northwest area of Molise region. And the label of the Terra di Lavoro and a part of the Terra di Rosso represent the ancient map of the region during the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. The vineyards are located at the slope of the Roccamonfina volcano at 400 meters, 450 meters above sea level and exposed in front of the Gulf of Gaeta. So we typically experience temperate climate during all seasons, and the temperature range from day to night helps the wine a lot. Moreover, the combination of the volcanic soil, as you said before, the wind that comes from the sea, and the overall environment based on chestnuts and olive trees represent a wonderful terroir in order to produce great wines. In particular, the volcanic soils confers the wine different peculiarities that ensure the production of high quality wines, such as minerality, first of all, which we say it's the backbone of the Terra di Lavoro. The long persistence and the aging, of course. So the soils in our vineyards are generally a composition of tough ash and pumice. So you can really feel the minerality into the wines, mainly in the Terra di Lavoro. So of course, nature takes its course, but we also pay a lot of attention in the vineyards during the selection of grape. So we pay more attention to the quality rather than the quantity of the wine and the grapes. And we own today 10 hectares of vineyards, and we produce around 30,000 bottles. It depends from the year, from the weather, of course. And we produce since 1999 large formats such as Magnum, and since 2002 Double Magnum.
My gosh, I'd have to wait till my illegitimate grandchildren become of age before I can drink a Double Magnum of Lavoro. It seems like a very long-term proposition.
So we usually present the Terra di Lavoro through a vertical. This time it's going to be virtual, of course. And the interesting part of it is the possibility to understand the evolution of the wine year after year in the bottle, but tasting different vintages show also the kind of weather, the weather conditions that of course can vary from a year to another.
Yeah.
In particular, those we are about to taste are very different from each other. So some of them come from very hot years, while others from very rain and cold weather. So
Yeah.
this can usually influence the result, but the work done, of course, in vineyards during complex year guarantee us always to maintain high quality standards. And
well, I've got to say, it's an interesting function of the fact that you guys only produce a limited amount in a very limited space. There's none of this mixing of sites or anything like that. When I opened all these wines earlier today, I've never come across a vertical of the same wine that expresses such completely different characteristics from each other. It was just blew me away, the difference. I can't wait to actually take a closer look at that. But let's look at the Rosso first.
Yeah, so we expect not only differences, as you said, because of the evolution of the weather, but also in terms of the volcano influence, such as the minerality, which is more pronounced in the older vintages, while younger ones remind more the fruits and the cherries.
Yeah.
As I said before, Terra di Rosso is 100% Piedirosso, so we can start from it.
Okay.
Because it's a little bit more fresh.
Is this the first vintage? Is 17 your first release of the 100%?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The 2017 was, we say, the one of the most beautiful harvest for Galardi.
Yeah, gosh, I think I was reading a romance novel when I was reading James Suckling's notes on 17. He fell deeply in love with your grapes in 17. I mean, it speaks volumes that this is the first time you've produced this label, and it's already got a 95 pointer from Suckling and 3 Gambero Rosso, the first year out of the gates. It's really extraordinary.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and even those people that were like so happy about the fact that we produced just one wine. They were super excited about the second label, the Terra di Rosso. So we didn't expect it all from them. So we expected more like, oh no, you should just produce the Terra di Lavoro and not introduce the second label. But so for us, the Terra di Rosso is a wine to drink young due to the right amount of tannins. It's full of taste, fruitness, cherry in the front, but it's also really fresh. The color is intense. A little bit less intense than the Terra di Lavoro from the Terra di Lavoro.
I guess an interesting point is to compare the Lavoro 17 with the Rosso 17 because it will allow people to differentiate the varietals from each other. So, guys, that's jars 1 and 4 would be the two if you wanted to compare them.
It has been one of the most beautiful harvests in the history of Galardi, and the proof is that we decided to produce our second label. The weather was fantastic, and we harvest actually in September. That didn't happen since 2003. So
also for me, the Rosso has a beautiful deftness on the nose. It's super delicate. It's all feather-like, cashmere-like. It's really, really attractive. But of course, on the palate, you're getting the elbows out, the tannic structure, etc. It's really quite deceiving if you just look at the phenolics on its own and in relation to the palate. It's way, way different in style.
Yeah, it's really fresh. We actually recommend pairing with pizza, pasta ragu, which is a classic Neapolitan dish, or if you want to change a little bit with fish soups.
Yeah.
It's a little bit less complicated than the Terra di Lavoro.
Yeah.
And we love it. We say it's a nice glass of wine if you want to drink that.
Yeah. I understand that your Piedirosso vines are between 25 and 50 years in age, ungrafted. Is that right?
We usually recommend let it age the Terra di Lavoro in 10 years maximum. Terra di Rosso is ready to drink.
Oh no, I was talking about the vine age, actual age of the vines.
Oh yeah, it's 20 years.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. Top marks for salinity, right? You can almost smell the salt. It's incredible.
Yeah. I feel the cherry in the front is really intense.
You know, with all our imports and costs and duties and all the rest of it, to bring this quality under $50 is really a huge achievement. When we get to show this to our database, knowing how they respond to this level, this sort of rating, and this kind of price point, I have very little doubt that it's going to be a big seller for us.
Yeah.
I think people just need to get over the notion of it's coming from a place that's unusual for the average global consumer of wine. It's in itself is an interesting story.
Actually, may I ask, is Piedirosso a traditional grape variety that's been renewed in the region, or?
Yeah.
Okay. And I see that your winemaker is actually Riccardo Cottarella.
Yeah.
Why do you keep that a secret? I mean, the guy's a genius, and no one knows he's the winemaker.
Can you guys give us some for examples? What else does he make?
Well, you name it. He makes the Morgante.
Oh, okay, cool.
Montesco. His own label that he's famous for. Help me, Silvana. His family label is the help me, please help me.
What else does he make, Silvana?
He follows so much business.
Really?
We know.
Oh.
I don't get the name. Right.
Well, don't worry. Before I do a newsletter, I'll do some digging and lift his CV off LinkedIn. I'm sure it'll be there.
I'll get you some info in a second. Steve's tapping away on his phone.
Thank you.
Okay, so shall we? What I'm super interested to do is to leave the Rosso to the end and come back to see how much more it evolves, because I actually opened these super early this morning, earlier than I normally do, and immediately double decanted just to get the most out of them. But I'm super keen to see what happens when we just leave them for half an hour or something.
It's gonna change.
Yeah. So onto the Lavoro. Can I just ask you before you dive in, why do the Italians call this blend pigeon's feet? What is that? The Piedirosso and the Aglianico blend, they call it pigeon's feet. What's that about?
It's like the literal translation of Piedirosso.
Oh, I see. Okay, so there's no cultural myth that I've missed out on.
A slang that and its transformation that we try to explain, but actually we can't explain.
Welcome to Italy.
Well, actually, there are so many words, like British English words that really traduce in Italian. I'm gonna say, I mean.
Yeah.
You don't have that type of slang or interaction with people that.
Yeah, you're right. You've actually got to live the language to understand the point of view, the linguistics of it. You're right. So on to 15, 96 points from Suckling, 95 from Wine Advocate. Let's see what you think about it.
15 was a year full of heat and low rain, so a great weather for the production of wine. So actually 15 and 17 were those two with heat and low rain, and the 16, 18 were actually pretty bad in terms of weather. So this vintage is quite dense, compact, and almost impenetrable color, in my opinion. And it's just a little bit violet on the nail. The aroma, in my opinion, is the classic from Terra di Lavoro.
I was going to ask you that because I was quite impacted when I first opened it by a reductive component, which is now not there at all. I said to Lou a couple of hours ago, gosh, I've never seen such a forcefully reductive nose, but that's completely disappeared now. It's replaced by far more sensitive phenolics.
Yeah. First, the damp earth, in my opinion, cherry plum.
Maybe some coffee.
Yeah. Black pepper, eucalyptus, if you get a little bit more the freshness.
Mm-hmm. Again, the texture, geez, it's just so glossy and neat, you know.
Pulpy. I love the word pulpy.
Pulpy.
Yeah.
More for me, more dry cherries than fresh cherries. It just has that sort of more stable notion in terms of the flavor.
Great balance between tannins and acidity. Like the 17 is a little bit more acid in that way. It has a great potential in aging, so we usually recommend that it age for almost 10 years.
Right.
Like the 17, and we can taste later on the 16 that for us is ready.
That really showed earlier on that the 16 was a far more earlier presenting wine. Lots of similarities between 15 and 17 for me, just in terms of structure along the way.
I get the balsamic notes a little bit more now.
Yeah. Tapenade, yeah. It's so interesting if you just stroll across to 16 because it's sweeter. There's an immediacy of glycerine, a little bit oily in the top palate, making it way more something that you're going to jump into straight away.
Yeah, of course.
Some people will say, and it's interesting because the wine critics are obsessed about pigeonholing Galardi. They're never going to be able to, but they're all giving it a go. And the thing that most of them seem to come up with is this vintage is the most Bordeaux-esque expression that most critics have tasted in the last 15 years of Galardi. Certainly, we see in Tuscany and in Piedmont majestic, rich, ripe kind of fruits. So the Brunello in particular is showing amazingly similar kind of characteristics, just earlier approachability, sort of crowd-pleasing approachability at an earlier stage. Maybe more exotic spice. It just has a bit more flair, maybe. Just more exotic is probably the closest I can find. And I think of the two, I don't know if you agree, but I think the 16 is able to be drunk without food more readily than the 15. Yeah. And I suspect the others, the 17 and 18 as well.
Yeah. It's the we think the characteristics of the years in which we have more cold and rain, the readiness, so 16 and 18, where pretty much we expected cold and rain.
I kind of get to see now why, I don't know which critic it was, I think it might have been Monica Ilana, who said that this is a Cabernet without any Cabernet in it. I can't remember who said that. And I kind of get it. It has a kind of Pauliac component to it, sort of majestic component to it that's different from the others.
That's a huge compliment.
Yeah. I guess you could ask the question 100 times, but cellaring on for a normal release of Galardi, a decade to 20 years, something like that?
We always thought, my family actually always thought about producing another wine.
Mm-hmm.
We were just trying to wait the right moment to do it, and the 17 was the right time.
Yeah.
For the Piedirosso, because we didn't change the blend of the Terra di Lavoro, and we just had an overproduction actually of the Piedirosso because of the weather. That was fantastic.
Yeah.
So at that time we said, okay, that's the year that.
It's always so interesting for me that some of the most majestic successes in the wine industry have been from chance and circumstance, right? Yeah. So great overproduction, let's make another label and boom.
Yeah, actually, we always said that the family business started as a game because they just wanted to produce a wine to drink in our countryside house.
Right.
It was just like, okay, we should try to to produce a wine for ourselves, for the family, to enjoy during the holidays, the vacation.
Yeah.
And then Ricardo said, well, actually, you should think about it before you just drink for yourself. And we started to produce it. So it was just, yeah.
I've got a friend here in Singapore who got very involved, with all the lockdown and can't move around. And so he decided to make his own beer. And it was slightly less successful when he almost blew up his entire apartment through some unhappy accidents in the fermentation process. So not every experiment ends as well as yours does. Sam's asking about the components. Does the ratio change year to year, the 80-20% of the blend?
No, it doesn't change from a year to another. It's always 80-20%.
I think that's another reason why these Lavoras are so expressive of their vintage, because all those parameters are kept in place. Yeah, Ben, I completely agree. And that savory component, that sort of pancetta kind of thing, is very obvious in the 17 nose. In fact, more obvious for me than 15 and 16. It just jumps out, that savory, almost umami kind of component.
That's I think the most fantastic thing about it. So we don't change our work. We don't change the kind of the grapes in the wine, but nature, the soil, the kind of weather, can really change from one to another.
So dramatically different, yeah. No, it's awesome.
We really like it.
I think what you guys achieve and what so many other wineries don't is when they're hit by changing in climates, they're unable to compensate properly for it. So you get people doing things in the winery that are counterintuitive to the climate and the terroir, and mistakes happen. Whereas here, having a rarefied location and not changing the recipe starts to show a really interesting body of work, which is really shown so dramatically here in the verticals.
Yeah, we just select more carefully the grapes and vineyards, so the work is more intense in vineyards, but we don't change the recipe of doing it.
Another reason why I really love the Lavoro 17 is it's got an ease about it, it's just has this easy approachability that is going to evolve over time and just broaden and become more expressive. I really love that part of its character. I can see why Suckling gave this 96.
Yeah.
In fact, I would have maybe thrown a bit more. That softness is so beguiling, sort of purple fruit. Really delicious. What are your thoughts of 17 into 18? Because we're seeing quite a profound difference in Piedmont, for example, vintage on vintage. What has that been like for you guys?
From 17 to 18? In terms of taste, I think that the 18 is a little bit more fruity.
Right.
You can feel more the floral taste. The 17 is really strong.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more spicy in that way, like more pepper, more the spicy notes instead of 18. And in our opinion, the 18 it's a little bit more ready than 17. It's also
incredibly unfair to taste the 18 so early in its life, because this wine, for me, it reminds me so much of Nebbiolo in Piedmont, where you just got to leave it alone. It's got to.
In Italy, actually, we say that Ianico is the Nebbiolo of the south.
Yeah. Oh, bravo. So that's exactly what I think. You just got to let it find its own way. It's going to get there in the end. So, it's super interesting to see the 18 tonight, but oh my gosh, it's not ready to start singing yet.
Yeah. I've got the 16, if you want to move on.
Yeah, please.
So 16 was characterized by the cold and rain, and we always say that in the end the wine paid off, because we have so many people love it. The 16 is actually from the current ones that we have one of the most beautiful and appreciated harvest and wine, of course.
It echoes back to that sort of Bordeaux kind of characteristic, that sort of rich, round, majestic kind of component, which is quite different from your body work as a rule.
I think that's because the 16 it's a little bit more fresh. You can get more the balsamic notes, the fruit, so it's a little bit less intense and complicated than the 17.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So many people that love drink wine now, so I want a wine ready to drink, said that the 16 is the right one. They really like it.
Yeah, Goran, you're absolutely right. There's a same family feeling about it, despite the fact that there's an external winemaker actually curating the transition. They're all kind of held together. There's a thread that seems to combine them together as a body of work.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Really wonderful wines.
What's so fantastic is to see wine that's not running around in different directions, trying to cater to change of climate and harvest and all the rest of it. It's quite ballsy, but they pulled it off. It's really impressive.
Yeah, even because, I don't know if I said before, since 1997, we follow the organic agriculture. So the wine is not biological, but we have to follow the organic agriculture. So in terms of nature, the work that we do in the vineyards, we always have to follow some rules.
Yeah. I think that's certainly, it seems to be a trend talking to so many winemakers during COVID. They're deeply respectful of the organic approach, but are not going to obsess about certification and walking around the vines 3 times in the 3rd week of every month, whatever, you know. Things tend to get a little hysterical with certification. So there seems to be this sort of middle road that so many winemakers are finding these days.
I agree, if you are vegetarian or vegan, that you want to find
Sure.
that it's vegan and it suits you, but you don't have to because it's in vogue right now. And it's actually a field that, I feel it actually it is movement. Yeah.
There's so much of that we see in Italy and in Spain where, you want to call us organic, that's fine. We've been doing the same thing for 400 years. So, you know, if people buy our wine because we're now all of a sudden organic and fashionable, that's okay. And I think that's the perfect way to approach it.
Yeah. Really good persistence.
In 16?
A winning shot.
Yeah.
Even
a lot of people,
not that great, but
a lot of people talk about your wines. Also, one of the characteristics of the wines is length, something that just seems to continue and continue and continue.
yeah.
If you were to talk about Aglianico in its own right, there's only one winery that I know that produces Aglianico in its own way. The takeaways that I've had from Aglianico as a single varietal are tobacco, a lot of sort of dark, really dark herby kind of action. It's quite a tannic, solid wine to begin with. It takes masses of time to actually have a point of view.
Yeah, that's really.
Would you? Yeah.
The Piedirosso gets a little bit more smooth, so the smoothness of the Terra di Lavoro.
Yeah, the tannic structure of Piedirosso on its own is definitely defter than Aglianico. It's like so many parts of the world where you put Shiraz and Cabernet together and they seem to create this majesty. I guess what you really nailed with the Lavoro is the best attributes of those 2 grapes in one bottle, in one place.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask the chat room to give us some votes on their favorite vintage, which I'm happy to say we have plenty of all of them, which is great.
I'm taking the 17.
You having?
We can come back to the Terra di Rosso 17 and Terra
Yeah, that'd be great.
See the differences.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, if you go back to the Rosso 17, richer, sweeter without the Aglianico,
Yeah.
definitely has that It's so cool to look at it retrospectively, because it gives me a deeper understanding now of Piedirosso versus Aglianico. Actually, it's a very useful exercise.
Yeah, we always do it during the tasting in the cellar, the tasting options, and it's really interesting, even seeing the differences that the people see from one to another. So many people think that it's more drinkable and fresh, the Terra di Lavoro.
Yeah, definitely more drinkable.
Terra di Rosso.
Yeah. So Dave's asking the oak treatment. I'm guessing with such tannic wines, you go for a fairly neutral approach with oak.
Yeah, we do have the vinification. We do have the maceration in contact with peels for 20 days, the fermentation in steel tanks, and we let it age in barrique of Allier Neve for about 12 months, the Terra di Lavoro, and the Terra di Rosso 8 months.
8 months, okay.
Yeah. So it's
are you using new oak at all, or is it older oak?
We do have like 3 kind of oaks.
Yeah.
One is new, one is first, how do you say that? Our first step, and then the second one.
I understand. Yeah. Second generation oak.
Yeah.
Got it.
So is that French oak, Robert?
I didn't get to nationality. Where did it come from, Silvana? French.
Yeah, French. Allier and Neve. Allier.
So there's a lot more vanilla on this 18, right? A lot more vanilla.
We actually don't love the vanilla flavor into the Terra di Lavoro, so we just try. We always taste it during the period of aging. So Terra di Lavoro is like 10-12 months. We don't have that rule that we have to say that's 11 months, 12 months, and the Terra di Rosso a little bit less. So you can get that much the flavor of the vanilla or the oak. That's
okay. Yeah.
into it.
But Lou's right. There's more coconut and vanilla than one would expect from French oak. If I was taste, I mean, I'm absolutely crap at blind things, but maybe here's another reason. Because if I smelt this 18 in a blind tasting, I would say it's American oak treatment, just because of the sweetness of the phenolics. So you're saying that's not a function of climate, that's a life cycle of the wine that will actually soften out in time. Right.
Yeah. I love the comments like 17, 16. Thank you. So 17, as I said before, was one of the most beautiful harvests in the history of Galardi. And this time the richness and the complexity of the wine are, for us, surprising.
Looks like Ben's voted for all of them, which is very wise. Oh, no, sorry, I'm not reading you correctly. 2016 is your preference, above 15 and 17. And you're absolutely right, Ben. The 16 is the one that stands on its own without food. The others really do need food. Tomato, cheese, that sort of standard stuff.
Yeah, seasoned cheese.
Yeah. Ben, the one thing I'll say about 18 is, having drunk, I think the first one I ever had was 12 from you guys. Its path, its maturation path is dramatically different every year. You know, just another 12 months in the cellar, it has a completely different point of view. So whatever we're tasting in that 18 now is way different from what it's going to taste like in 18 months' time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, Colin, what have you ordered on delivery? I'm dying to know if it's Italian. It better be Italian.
It is Italian, so I've got a Milanese cut and I think some form of pasta.
Oh, that'll work. I keep trying to do these tastings with food as a component, but it's like air traffic control, trying to get food and wine in the same. It's too hard. I can't do it. So I've given up trying that. Well, judging by the votes, it looks like 17's the winner on the day, which sort of ties to what you were saying about being such an exceptional vintage for you. I've got to agree. I really love 16, and maybe it's the salesman in me. I can see why people were really going to grab that because of its immediacy of approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben, I think it is in its own direction, but it's just like a teenager, right? They just need to run around and exhaust themselves, and they'll come back home eventually and grow up. So I think that's the best way to describe 18 at this stage.
Yeah. In 17, I get even the roses petal, the geranium, and tannins a little bit more aggressive than the 16.
Oh, for me, it's the other way around. I'm so in love with the softness of the phenolics that I don't mind so much the tannin on the 17. And for me,
but I can understand the differences that people talk about between 16 and 17. So I get that, but I like it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So of course, some
Yeah.
people are gonna like it more the 17 because of that, or some people prefer like the more balsamic notes and the pulpy sensation you get.
Yeah. Well, Colin's asking if the Rosso is ongoing. I would say getting 3 Gamba Rosso on the first year of release, it's pretty much going to.
Ongoing, yeah.
So with the Rosso, it obviously has a different cellaring trajectory. It's not going to be a super long cellaring wine, or how does it change in its 100% state?
It's actually we don't really know because of the 17.
Sure. Yeah.
We think that we always say it's ready, so you can drink. Even the 17 in the 19 when we first released it was ready.
Yeah.
But it has its potential in aging because of the quality of the grapes.
Yeah.
But we don't really know now because we was produced it in 17. So we shall say in 10 years how the Piedirosso.
Yeah, get back to us in 10 years. It's a good problem to have for sure. Are there any more questions? Oh,
yeah. Silvana, what do you see as the main drinking window for the Terra di Lavoro? Is it 10 years, 15 years? Where do you guys?
For us, it's 10 years. The maximum is 10 years.
Okay.
We don't love the fact that they let it age for 20, 25 years. It can get fantastic after 20 years, but we don't really know. So we prefer like saying 10 years for us is the perfect amount of time.
Cool.
I saw a note on Cellar Tracker this afternoon that someone had just tasted an O2 and were waxing lyrical about how great the 2 is at this stage, which was interesting given your comment now. Yeah, I've got to agree with Ben, going back to that Rosso 18 again and again. Maybe it's because it's end of a tasting and the sweetness is more appealing. It's a fantastic job. Thank you. So I'm going to ask on the family, this is normally Lou's question, but I'm going to steal the thunder. When you guys hang out and do your family lunch on a Sunday, what kind of wines do you guys drink other than Galardi? Because you got to get a little tired of just Galardi, right? You're going to tell me Barolo.
We of course, I arrived here was January 2020. So I actually started with the pandemic situation. So
oh my God, yeah.
We go out. We sometimes do like private tasting to taste, of course, other kind of wines. Red, white.
Yeah.
I prefer, maybe I'm gonna sound a little bit more, I don't know.
No, an opinion is never wrong. An opinion is never wrong on wine.
I'm from the South, so I really like to the best to buy all the wines from South and try to taste and the differences.
Yeah.
From, like you said before, Sicily, we can get the terroir, the similarity in terms of the terroir, but the wine are so different, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think after tasting these tonight, for me, the thing that I love about Etna Rosso is a sort of purple graphite minerality in the wines. It seems to be something that seems to define that style. And I'm seeing a similar kind of characteristic in what you guys are doing in Campania, which is really exciting.
David, the first vintage was 1994. 1991, the Galardi was born.
Oh, okay. 94. We got it.
94.
All right. So I was going to say thanks so much for coming, Silvana. I appreciate your time. I hope we can see you in Singapore sooner rather than later. And maybe next year we can talk again with the new releases, and we'll say how foolish, how crazy we are talking about the 18 being a crazy teenager, and it's found its place in the home in a year's time. So looking forward to that.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Thank you, everybody. We're not doing a tasting next week, but we'll be back the following week. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Silvana.
Amazing wines. Thank you very
Ciao.
much.
Ciao, tutti.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Back to prison, David. Back to prison.
Yeah, I'm still in prison. One more wine. Send wine, please. Send wine.
Can do.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Grazie, Silvana.
Bye,
Ciao.
thank
Muy
you.
bene. Ciao.
Sure, Dave. It's just so surprising to see this lineup tonight and how different they are. It's really quite a revelation for me.
Oh, no, I loved them. I mean, I don't, maybe I've had companion wines before, but I'm not aware. And these were amazing. I mean, I like, you talked about Etna, so I really enjoy Etna, the minerality.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I really get that. So yeah, as you see, I've been ordering as we've been talking. So very happy.
So right, Dave's doing his quarantine. He decided to go to America for a wedding and came back to discover that quarantine had gone from 14 days to 21. So his timing was kind of rough.
It's all right. Robert saved me. He sent me a lot of wine when I showed up. But yeah, thank you very much. I mean, this was a very amazing experience. I've never had, like I said, never had companion wines, so it was good learning. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to go and find.
So I always get a little bit more anxious about it, but
What about the tastings? No, you're great. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
No,
it's very good. Yeah.
really, really cool.
thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, take it easy.
Have a great
All
day.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you, David.
Good to see you.
See you guys later.
Yeah, sorry about the 100-pointer next week, but it called me. Don't have the bandwidth.
No problem.
Ah, it's all right. I didn't realize you were moving. I'm quite curious.
Yeah,
the new dude.
We were going to move. I see Peter Earnshaw's on. Peter, you're going to be very delighted to hear our new location. It's about 150 meters from where you live in Topayo. So we're in Lorong 5 in Topayo, which is, as the crow flies, just a couple of kilometers. But in terms of the roads, whoever designed Topayo, they're like Paris. They all go in circles.
They call us the Paris of the South.
Do they really?
No, actually, they call Paris the Topayo of the North.
Oh, I got it. That explains so much. That's why my Luxa has snails in it here. That explains it.
Well, there goes our property prices. That's all I can say.